Okay, thank you everyone for being here and for being on time. That's always a nice thing. And let me go ahead and pin myself so it's easier for you to see. Oh, wow. we have a visitor from a ways away, Cairo, actually. And thank you so much for sharing that. This is very educational. We're finding out people from all over the place. So thank you so much for that. And we will go ahead and get started here. I want to ask a question first as we're starting, and that is kind of the underlying theme when we're talking about overcoming fear with faith, and that is it's about who's in control and remembering that. So if you could go ahead and share the first slide. I will go ahead with a little background for those of you that aren't as familiar with me. I have 30 years of experience in nutrition and holistic medicine. I have a BA in Christian education. I'm the author of 4 books on Amazon that are on the screen there. I've hosted 8 speaker series where people learn about a variety of things, including gut health and becoming God's temple. And I have led over 10 guided retreats and lost count of how many times I have done a retreat myself. Doing it one-on-one, I have been doing that consistently since 2018, pretty close to being once a month since then. So if you want to do the math, you can. I'd rather talk about overcoming fear with faith. So go ahead and unshare. All right, and I want to start us off by having you share a little bit, just type a word in the chat or a couple words. What are you worried about? What are the things that are worrying you right now? Health? Yep. Any other things that you're worrying about at the moment? Probably finances would be another one that comes up regularly. Politics, the state of the world, things of that nature frequently come up. And what is it about these things? Why are these kind of things maybe, keeping you up at night? Go ahead and type in the chat if you've got some thoughts about why those things particularly. Lots of times we get caught up in thinking about tomorrow, thinking about what's going to happen. Do we have money to pay this bill or that bill? I know I've been there. I have to remind myself of where my source is and, replug into him myself. And what I would say is the greatest weapon blocking what God is building in your life is worry. It actually doesn't accomplish anything. Those of us that are, tend to be compulsive worry wards and, have had to be trying to be recovering worry wards, have had to go, we kind of have it as a badge of honor that we think about these things. We care about these things. And we don't want to think about necessarily the fact that we didn't actually accomplish anything. We didn't solve any of the world's problems by worrying about this. Um, in fact, we may have just lost sleep over it if it actually was keeping you up at night. It's not, I mean, yes, there are times when we'll have a situation where we're like concerned about it. It's like, okay, is there something I can do about it? Is there something that would be prudent to do in this situation to prepare? Or is there absolutely nothing I personally can do about this situation? If it's the latter, then nothing, no amount of worrying is actually going to help the situation. Nothing's actually going to change anyway. It's just going to be stirring up things inside of you, and you're going to be probably regretting it the next day after you stayed up too late, stewing and churning about things. I've done that in the past, and it's not something I try to do anymore. I try to re redirect my thoughts if my brain starts, spinning, redirecting things. And so that's part of what we're going to talk about here today. And I want to give you an example from scripture of worrying, getting uptight, etc. Go ahead and share. All right, so this is a very familiar passage from Mark 4. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, Jesus, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat just as he was. And the other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushions. And they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? They sound a little worried, And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. So go ahead and unshare. What do we get from this? Our nature is to get worried and see the situation around us and think we're dying, and the world's coming to an end. And what does Jesus do? He just says, okay, enough, and everything is crystal calm. Now, I don't know about you, if you've ever been on a lake when it was rough. And I mean, when my parents were in Israel, and actually I've been on the sea there, but it was calmer on my day. But the day that my parents first were there, it was rough. And it's like it's in a wind tunnel on that lake. And so the wind just comes down through there, and it can work up some pretty heavy waves. And this had fishermen concerned, whose business it was to spend their whole days, on this lake in these boats. So this was probably not your average storm. I mean, it was probably a little above that. But the other interesting aspect of this is, think about this. I mean, it just ceased like that. It's like all of a sudden it was calm. And now, if you've ever been on water, it doesn't happen that fast normally. If it calms down, the waves just start slowing down. They start getting less, but no, this is complete and utter control. He had complete control of the situation. That's why he could be asleep and not be worried about it. we would never pull that off. But he wasn't concerned about it. He was also wiped from helping people. He had a physical body. He had physical limitations. He needed the rest too. He needed time with his father. All of these things. Now, based on what we're talking about, go ahead and type in the chat, who is in control? And I know you know the answer to this one. Go ahead and type, who is in control? Yes, Jesus in this specific situation, of course, in every situation, God is in control. Now, we are all going to falter in our faith at times. It's common in one way of putting it, and it's part of our daily growing and expanding our faith and getting better. Because if you think about what is bothered you, in your life, things you stressed about, say 10, 20 years ago, are they the same things you stress about now? Not to the same degree. Lots of times you have learned something from your earlier experiences to where you're at a new level of what God is asking you. Do you trust me? Do you trust that I am there for you? Now, we have a choice. Will we spiral deeper when we're in this situation, or will we turn our focus back to God, acknowledge his sovereignty, and trust him that he is in control and has a plan? And I know we don't have to understand the plan. We don't even have to know what the plan is. All we have to do is know there is a plan, and it is for our ultimate good. Now go ahead and share the screen again with the next one. All right, the weapons of our warfare, which what I've just been describing, this is a warfare, is not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. Worry is a stronghold. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. That's 2 Corinthians 10, 4 and 5. Now let me talk about this verse for a minute here. Just think about what that's saying. It's like we're destroying arguments. We're raising up opinions. We're destroying opinions that are against God. Now, what's the knowledge of God? Knowledge of God is that we know he loves us, he's in control, and he has a plan. That is part of his character. That is part of who he is, and knowing him is part of that. And by knowing him, we can take other things, these attacks that we're having, and go, that's not true. I know that's not true. No, God is not trying to destroy me right now. It may feel like I'm under bombardment. Yes, I am under attack, but God is still with me. And part of what I'm just describing there is taking every thought captive to obey Christ. You're taking back your thoughts. You're preaching to yourself, shall we say, what is true and what is true of God's character, so that you are destroying the strongholds that are in your life. You are taking every thought captive so that you don't have to be at the whim of everything that is going on around you. And this is a practice. This is something we have to keep doing because we never 100% get there. It's not on this side of heaven. We have to learn this and relearn this and reteach ourselves that we're okay. We can take every thought captive. And go ahead and switch sides. The other verse that I wanted to bring up in this context is Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. Now think about that one for a minute here. We're called to transform our minds. Our mind's second nature is worry. It's getting hung up in all of these things. It's being conformed to this world is, easier. It's, our second nature to want to do things the way other people are doing them, or if everybody else is worried, we're going to be worried about the same things. All of this is part of what we're called to transform, what we're called to renew, so that we can reconnect with God, so we can know what He wants for us and the direction He wants for us to go. And so when we can, by taking every thought captive, by not, conforming to, the worries and the distractions and everything else of this world, we are in the process of being transformed. And it's not always easy. It's not always fun, but God is still there, because that is the overarching, theme of Scripture. And more verses than I will possibly could bring up today is that God is with us and He will not forsake us. And when we can go back to that knowledge of God, then we're able to extinguish those darts and those arrows that are sinking into us and causing us to start worrying. Go ahead and stop the share. God is calling you to be still and listen. Sometimes the best thing we can do with these situations is to get quiet and let God show us where He wants us to be, what He wants us to do. It's not that we never do anything about some of these situations. It's not that we don't take, responsible action if, we can, like in the case of voting or things of that nature. But ultimately, it will come back to Him. That is what it means. Yes, we have responsibility, but who is sovereign? Who is in control? And the more you're worrying, the more you're thinking you have, some stake in this. You have some way of controlling the situation, and it's like, you may not. There may not be something you can do. And we have to discern that, ask God for the wisdom to know when, okay, is there something I need to change? Is there something I need to do? And one situation this reminds me of is I had a dream about something, and I was concerned that, an address hadn't, we have an interesting address that the Postal Service does not recognize. So we had some things that didn't necessarily have the right address on them. And so like this dream was about, our property tax bill not having the right address, kind of thing, and trying to come to our street address, which of course wouldn't do any good, or our old address before we moved here. And what I did with this is like, okay, just in case this is something important, I'm just going to check it out. I'm going to find out, okay, how do I double check that they have the right address? Contacted my realtor, asked him, he gave me who to contact at the county. And I said, okay, I just wanted to double check the address you have is right. It was correct. But did I feel better having checked it out? Yes, I did. But I just wanted to be sure with it. And so that would be a situation where it's like, yeah, okay, so I did do some due diligence and go ahead and check it out and make sure that there wasn't something, that God was trying to tell me, through this. And so there is this balance there that, yes, we take action, we take responsibility, we don't, we ask God before we're making, some big expenditures. We try not to get into financial situations, that are tight. But we also ask Him, it's like, is this something you want me to do? And trust that He will give that confirmation. And if He's given the confirmation, ask Him to provide for it. Because if He's wanting you to do something, then it's like, okay, all right, God, you have the resources. Show me how to pay for this. That would be the next thing. Go ahead and share the next slide. The next area I wanted to come back to again was God's calling for us to be still and listen. I love the verse, be still and know that I am God. I mean, you just have to just come back to that and go, okay, God, you are God. I am not. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? And you are awesome. You are powerful. I know you can take care of this. And just be still. And we will be going into more of ways of connecting with God, ways of being still on the event. Another verse is, the Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Just think about that for a minute. God can take care of this. God always can take care of it. It's His choice whether to change the situation or not. And when we come to Him and we bring it to Him, lots of times, and I've had this specific verse given to me on a retreat where God said, okay, I got this taken care of. You don't need to do anything. And it was like, oh, this is not something I need to worry about. I can be still and know He is God. He is in control, and He will still be in control tomorrow. He was in control yesterday, but He is in control right now. And trusting Him is key. Go ahead and unshare. What are some ways, maybe I know I've used retreats and times one-on-one with God. What are some ways you have calmed yourself down when you've gotten into a spiral? Because I'm sure you have your own list of things that you've used. Go ahead and type in the chat if you would like. What are some ways that you have gotten yourself back, out of that spiral and back to thinking clearly and trusting God? Stop, breathe. Excellent. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we often need a time out, don't we? Yes, that's part of the reason that this section, when we've been talking about this, has been so heavy on the scripture, is it's like we can take this and go back to it and say these over out loud, say his word over again to us. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to be silent. I mean, that is just, and a couple, you can also use the verses that I mentioned in the email leading up to this, like Joshua 1:9. Do not be afraid. If you notice how often God uses that, we are very fearful lot. It is our nature. It comes out at regular intervals. And we have to go back and go, okay, God, you have told me I don't need to fear. And saying that out loud to each other can be huge. It can be just amazing how much that can help you. It's just like when you're doing anything that you're like, can I do this? Am I sure? I can do all things through him who strengthens me. I actually learned that as a child to help me go to sleep at night, to refocus me on, it's like, okay, I don't need to worry about the, the dark corners of the room and the lack of light. I can trust. I can do anything with God's strength. So this has been kind of a preview of some of what we'll be going into through this whole process at the event. Obviously, we have more extended time on this and so much more that I could not possibly mention all of it, all of the different elements. If you really want to go deeper on this and other areas like your health, go ahead and get your ticket to the Prosper event. It's a week from today. So you can overcome fear with faith, find peace and freedom in God, and lose weight without trying. It's online, September 29th, a week from today. Tickets are, of course, still available. It's just $47. To claim your ticket, go to healthturnaroundcoaching.com/prosper-event. And that's on the screen there. It will also be dropped in the chat. And go ahead and grab your ticket. I would love for you to join me this next Friday. And remember, in the meantime, that we have to remind ourselves to trust God. It lots of times is not automatic. We have to retell ourselves. And at this point, there is no plan for this entire event. We may record it, but things happen. And so we're not really planning on having any kind of replay on it. So we want people to be there and actually get the most out of the experience by being present. So go ahead and grab your ticket. And yes, just like today and more so, we will be interacting, and we'll be doing more than just in the chat, and there will be some thinking about things and some writing about things and giving you time to process some of this stuff and go deeper, because lots of times we do need to really stop and think about some of the things that we just default do, and we just automatically, this happens, then this happens. It's just this automatic sequence, and we have to disrupt that sometimes and think about, okay, why do I do these things? Where is this coming from? And so I will send a replay out of today's call. So if you missed that for any reason, or you came in a little later, didn't get to hear everything, you can go back, re-listen to it, write down some of those scriptures, and come back to those and many more. Make yourself a list of all the ones you can go back to on this. I like to highlight them in my digital Bible so there, I can go through my highlights and be renewed, be recharged, find that peace that we know only comes from God, because He is our peace, and He is the only thing that we can ultimately trust in and rely on. So I will see you guys next week. I will be doing one more workshop with other content related to leading up to the event next Wednesday. So you'll see emails about that. And there'll be a encore email coming out with this recording later today. So if you came in late and you want to watch the earlier part, keep an eye out for that. But do get your ticket for the Prosper event. I encourage you, do you feel like God's telling you there's something here for you? Because He can, and He can just use me as a conduit to share something with you. And if you feel like God's saying, okay, no, there is something here for you, then go ahead, grab your ticket, and you will be all set and ready for Friday. And I will see you either on the next encore, not encore, but next workshop, or hopefully on Friday. Go ahead and get your tickets, and I will see you there. Bye-bye.